Right, everybody. Thanks for being here today. If you don't mind, yep, some of you are already doing it. That's perfect. If you don't mind just putting your name in the chat, helps me take attendance. It is so good to see you all. We will get started in just a second here. All righty. Thanks for being here, everybody. All right. So today at Health Corner, we're going to be talking about hand washing, which I'm sure everybody knows a little bit about already. Some of you maybe more than others, but we're just going to do a little bit of a review because it's super important. Flu season is coming up. We are in the midst of it, so hand washing is super important. All right, but before we get started on that, last week at Health Corner, we talked about bacteria and our microbiome. Does anyone want to share what they did for our Healthy Habit Challenge? Anyone want to share? You can unmute or you can type it in the chat. No one wants to share? Oh, Ian, you're eating more veggies. Awesome. Love to hear it. That is awesome. What is everybody else doing? You're eating healthy and exercising more, Gilbert. That is awesome. All right. Well, you'll have plenty of opportunities to continue practicing these healthy habits. It's going to be kind of like our summer series. We're just going to build upon each week's challenge. And if you weren't here last week, that's okay. The recording should be up on YouTube, so you can always go back and watch that one too. All right, so let's do a quick review from last week's Health Corner. What are bacteria? Remember, bacteria are super, super tiny little, you can think of them like animals almost, right? They're super, super tiny, and they're so small that we can't see them without using a microscope. A microscope is, if you're not familiar, it's kind of like a magnifying glass. Like if you wear glasses and you can't see far away, the glasses help make whatever you're trying to see look bigger, right? And so that's kind of like a microscope. And nobody, no matter how good your vision is, you cannot see bacteria without a microscope. So they're these tiny little things. And where do they live? They live everywhere, right? They're found everywhere in our environment, in our bodies, and on almost everything that we touch. So different bacteria grows in different environments. For example, some bacteria that we might find outside on the trees probably wouldn't be found on our skin. And are bacteria bad? We talked about this a little bit last week too. Not necessarily. Many bacteria are probiotic, right? Remember, we learned that new word last week. Probiotic, if you're pro, that typically means something is good. And these are bacteria that help us live. They help us digest our food, absorb nutrients. They actually help promote our mood and memory. They strengthen our immune system. They're probiotic bacteria will protect us from the bad bacteria. Does anyone remember the word for bad bacteria? We talked about it last week. It was another one of our new words. Anyone? Oops. Does anyone remember? No one remembers? That's okay. So the word for bad bacteria is pathogenic. If bacteria is pathogenic, then it can be harmful to us. So probiotic, if something is pro, that means it's good. We want more of it, right? That's very helpful to us. If something is pathogenic, right here in blue, it means that it can make us sick. So bacteria isn't just good, or not all bacteria is bad. So not all of it is pathogenic. Some of it is probiotic, but it is important for us to be able to distinguish the two, right? So why is one of the best ways to keep ourselves safe from pathogenic bacteria is by washing our hands. And that's super easy, right? Think about how easy it is to wash your hands. It's a super easy way to keep ourselves safe. So when should we wash our hands? Does anyone know? Yes, Gilbert, that's good. But when do we want to wash our hands? Can anyone think of an example? You can unmute or you could type it in the chat. Yeah, Kyle, after you use the bathroom, that's a great time to wash your hands, right? That's super important. What about other times? Yep, Gilbert, after using the bathroom, yes, that's an excellent time to wash your hands. Anyone else? After lunch, Nicole Wade, yes, that's great. You don't want any food and yucky stuff to get all over your things, right? So let's see. Here are a couple times we want to be washing our hands, right? Before, after, and during cooking or preparing food. Think about it. What do we do with food, right? We eat it or somebody eats it, right? And so we don't want anything that we've been touching all day, all that gross pathogenic bacteria. We don't want it getting in our food. So before, after, and during cooking or preparing food, we want to be washing our hands. Like Nicole Wayne suggested, before and after eating food, right? We don't want to be getting our food particles all over our stuff. So we should wash our hands before and after eating food, before and after seeing someone who is sick or not feeling well, right? Especially nowadays with COVID around, it's about to be flu season. Before we see somebody who's not feeling well, we want to wash our hands to make sure we don't bring any additional pathogenic bacteria to them. And after seeing someone who's not feeling well, we also want to wash our hands to make sure we don't take any of that pathogenic bacteria with us and might make us sick, right? So that's super important. Number 4, before and after treating a wound or cut. If you have a cut, right? It's now open. We don't want any bacteria getting in there because it could get infected. It could cause a bigger systemic infection. So we want to be really careful when we're taking care of any cuts or wounds. Number 5, like you all know already, after using the bathroom, super important to wash our hands, regardless of what we're doing afterwards. We don't want all those bathroom germs around, right? That's gross. Number 6, after blowing your nose, sneezing or coughing. When we sneeze, cough, or blow our nose, it's usually our body telling us there's something in there that we want out. Sometimes there's a lot of bad bacteria that comes out with it. And so we want to make sure we wash our hands so we don't spread that. And we don't add more when we touch our face or touch our things. We don't want that hanging around. Number 7, after touching an animal or animal's food, if we have a pet at home, right? We love our pets. They're really fun. It's fun to be around, part of the family, but they can carry a lot of bacteria that can be harmful to us because we're a different species than they are. And so before and after touching them, or especially after, we don't want any of that bacteria to get into our bodies. So when we eat or when we touch our face, when we cough, right? We want to make sure we've washed our hands so they're nice and clean. And number 8, after touching trash, if we take the trash out, we want to make sure that we are washing our hands, right? We don't want that gross trash bacteria getting all over us. All right. Why do we wash our hands? Does anyone know? We kind of talked about it already, but I want to hear what you guys think. Why is it important? You can unmute or you can type it in the chat. Totally up to you. Yeah, Zoe, we want to wash our hands with soap and water. Yep, soap and water. Yeah, Gilbert, you want to answer? You can unmute.
Okay, so I wash my hands with soap and water at least 20 seconds so that it kills germs.
Yes, that's great. Thank you for sharing, Gilbert.
You're welcome too, my friend.
Yeah, so we want to get rid of that pathogenic bacteria, right? We don't want any of that bad bacteria. So, but to keep it simple, we wash our hands to keep ourselves and others around us healthy, right? We want to minimize all that yucky, gunky stuff that could make us feel sick. Washing our hands can keep us healthy and prevent the spread of infections or germs. And germs can spread from person to person on surfaces. So like things that we touch, things that we eat, all kinds of stuff on our hands, right? So we want to make sure that we wash our hands before we touch our face, our nose, our eyes, our mouth. before we prepare or eat food, before we're touching like high touch surfaces. So when we go maybe out and we open the door at the mall, that door is going to be a really high touch surface, right? Lots of different people are coming through, touching that door. So we want to be cognizant of that and wash our hands a lot when we're in those environments. When we sneeze, we've kind of talked through a lot of this already, but we want to wash our hands to keep away that bad bacteria. All right, so let's briefly go through the steps to hand washing. I know some of you already know this, but step one, right? What do we do when we wash our hands? We get them wet. We get them wet with clean running water and then turn off the tap and apply soap. Why do we do this? Does anyone know? Why do we do this? I think you guys know. You can unmute or you could type it in the chat. Why is this the first step to hand washing? No one knows or no one wants to share? Yeah, Kailani.
Maybe so we don't get sick.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yep, we wash our hands so that we don't get sick. Let's see what this says. Use warm water and soap to wash your hands. Yep, we want clean water and soap to wash our hands. We do this. We want to use clean water to make sure that we're not spreading more germs, right? More pathogenic bacteria. So bacteria can live, remember, bacteria lives everywhere. So it can also live in the water, right? So that's why we want to make sure the water is clean so that we're not spreading even more bad bacteria. Number two, we want to turn off the tap to conserve water because water is a precious resource. And then number three, the soap, we want to use soap because it'll help us remove any bacteria from our skin. Yeah, you guys got, yep, you got it. The chat is looking good, guys. All right. So step two, what's step two? So now think about it, right? We wet our hands, we have soap on our hands. What are we going to do next? Who knows? What are we going to do? Are we just going to let the soap sit there? What are we going to do? What do we need to do to wash our hands? Yep, get under your fingernails, Ian. That's exactly right. Yep, rinse it. Not quite, Zoe. That's coming up, but you're skipping a few steps. What do we want to do? We want to lather our hands, right? So scrub our hands together rub our hands together with the soap and get the backs of our hands. We want to get between our fingers. And like Ian said, we want to get under our nails. A lot of bacteria lives under our nails. Super gross. So we want to make sure that we clean it, right? And why do we do this? Lathering. So lathering is the idea of rubbing our hands together and scrubbing our hands essentially. It helps to spread the soap around, right? We want to spread that soap all over to all the surfaces of our hands. And that rubbing creates something called friction. And what it does is it helps the bacteria attach onto the soap instead of our hands. So then when it's on our hand, or when it's on the soap, what can we do? We can rinse it, right? So we can get it off of our hands and down the drain. So what is step three? It's kind of similar to step two. Yeah, Gilbert, exactly. We want to scrub our hands for at least 20 seconds. A little trick for this that I'm sure you know, if you need a timer, you can hum the song Happy Birthday or ABCs or Twinkle Twinkle or whatever little song. Maybe you could pick a song that you like and just hum the chorus part if you're not into Happy Birthday. Or you can just count to 20 seconds, right? And you want to scrub for that long. Why do we do this? We want to make sure that we scrub long enough to let the bad bacteria attach to that soap, right? So we want to scrub the backs of our hands. We want to scrub the palms of our hands, between our fingers, under our nails, like Ian said earlier. We want to make sure all that bacteria gets stuck to the soap so that then when we wash it off, it's no longer on our hands. And step four that Zoe said earlier, we want to rinse our hands under clean running water, right? So remember we talked about just moments ago, we want clean water because bacteria lives everywhere and it lives in water too. So we want to make sure that water is clean and it's running, it's flowing so that the bacteria is not just sitting. And we want to wash off all the soap and bacteria that we just scrubbed off our hands, right? It doesn't do us any good if we just scrub it off and then let the soap dry because then the bacteria didn't go anywhere. And yep, we want to use clean water, clean running water to avoid recontamination. And our last step to washing our hands, what is it? You guys know. Tell me what it is. You can unmute or you can type it in the chat. Totally up to you. What is it? What's the last step to washing our hands? We just scrubbed. And now what? Yes, drying our hands. Exactly, Ian. Exactly, Zoe. Exactly, Kyle. We can use a towel. We dry our hands with a clean towel or we can air dry them before we touch anything, right? We don't want to touch anything before we dry our hands. Why? Because bacteria, remember, they live everywhere, right? And they can actually be more easily transferred to and from wet hands. So when our hands are wet, it's a lot easier for bacteria to stick to them. Therefore, we always want to make sure we dry our hands using a clean towel, right? Want to make sure it's clean, or we can air dry them thoroughly, make sure they're super dry before we touch anything. And those are the 5 steps to washing our hands, right? Does everybody knows that? Yep, we just went through them, but you guys are super smart and Art helped me walk through this presentation. Does anyone have any questions? No questions? You guys are pros already. Oh, we do have questions. Yes, Kailani.
Wash your hands, like wash your hands after dinner.
Yeah, we want to wash our hands after dinner. Yep, that's very true. We do want to do that. Yes, Gilbert.
And also, I have to wash hands before eating dinner, lunch, breakfast, and before cooking.
Yes, correct. Before and after and during cooking too. If you touch something in between, you want to make sure you wash your hands. Yeah.
Yeah, got it.
Perfect. You guys are learning or just reviewing things you already knew. Awesome. All right. Well, I can't wait to hear all about what you do for this week's challenge because we're still gonna choose a 1-factor tip from our first health corner about bacteria and our microbiome. And we're gonna practice it or we're gonna teach it to someone this week. So this past week, our friend Ian ate more vegetables. That's awesome. You can keep doing that, Ian, or you can pick something new, totally up to you. This week, our Healthy Habit Challenge is we're going to remind or teach one person about the importance of hand washing. So you could pick anyone. You could pick your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, your friend, your teammate, anyone, to remind or teach them about what you learned this week at Health Corner because it's super important, right? Why do we wash our hands? We want to keep ourselves and those around us healthy. So by spreading this info, it's going to make all the difference to those around us, okay? And I can't wait to hear what you all did next week at Health Corner. Per usual, if you have any health questions, any Hale o Maliola ideas or questions, incentive questions or song requests, please email me. I love getting emails from you all. Makes my whole day. And remember, if you want to watch this presentation or any of our previous ones, you can find them at our YouTube channel. I know some of you are subscribed to our YouTube and leave us lots of likes and comments, which is super, super awesome. We very much appreciate it. And on Wednesday, we will be working out with Coach Erica. We're going to be doing some yoga, okay? So with that, I'm going to stop sharing. I will stop recording